Yeah, banking representative, please. Hi, thank you. I'm concerned about my account. There's been a large chunk of change that's sort of just disappeared. Can you help me figure out where that went? Um, yeah, but never mind. No, yeah, found it. Thanks so much. Yep. Bye bye. Really? Really? Ugh, why? Welcome to another episode. Well, it appears we've acquired another video card on the channel. Uh, it is out of sheer morbid curiosity of the ability of this card and its performance is that I've pulled this in. This is not mine. I'm this is a loaner. Yeah, it's nice to have friends, I guess. The MSRP for this card is over $3,000. What they're calling MSRP. It is nice, I think, because I mean there is a water block for it. You can get an alpha cool water block. I've already shown a water block on my 5070 Ti. Um, I am concerned that I'm going to really like the performance of this. Um, you know, maybe I'll come into a Founders Edition 5090. That seems to be the only thing left. This is going to be 1999. And wow, to even think that I'd be happy paying 1999 for a card. Okay, I digress. Let's forget about what this costs for now, and let's start looking at its performance. First, we need to unbox it. So let's take a peek together. 4 cable adapter. Gracious. Brackets. Forget all that. Let's get this out. My goodness. This has got to be the heaviest card yet. Brand spanking new. That is a nice design. Huge. That's what she said. Got it. All right, it's set to silent and gaming. We want performance. We're going to set it to gaming. Apparently, it's set to not ramp up right away. Okay, fair. Okay, so now that we've got a 5090 in the mix, let's look at the productivity, starting with synthetic benchmarks and productivity benchmarks to get us started. So what's the goal? it really is not about saving money anymore. Let's just look to see what the 5090 does in comparison with the other cards that I've already tested. And here are the systems that we've used. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on some of these repeat slides. If you've been following along, please check those other videos, those part ones, part twos, and that gives you a little bit more information into the system, what we're trying to use here. But I've got 2 Intel benches and 1 AMD bench. The 2 test benches, 1 Intel, 1 AMD, all set up relatively similarly. That's an i9-14900KF and a 9900X. Good for productivity. Neither of those CPUs are no slouch. Both have 32 gig of memory, both set at 6,000 megahertz with sufficient power supplies, and we're going to run these cards through them, and we're adding the 5090 in here today. The office rig is the overbuild system, just to see how it does, if there's any particular difference, and we can talk about that at a later time. This is the basic rundown of the GPUs. So you're looking at the 5090, 5080, 5070 Ti, and 5070 that were used within these tests. And this is the basic information obtained from Tech PowerUp on the stats of these cards. And since we're focusing on the 5090 today, if you're looking at the 5080 versus the 5090, you can see that it's pretty much, you slice the 5090 in half and you get the 5080 for the most part. There's encoder differences, and they're just slight across the board there. Obviously, you're getting the most hardware if you're getting a 5090. But how does that do in terms of performance? So the synthetic benchmarks that we're going to use today, again, this has all been previously done, so I'm trying to talk quick so that you guys can get to the data. That's what you want to see. So 3D Mark, VR Mark, and performance test, and then Heaven, Valley, and superposition. Again, not sure that you're really going to see a lot from those particular benchmarks, but again, adding Heaven in here just to make Jay really happy and irritate Gamers Nexus beyond belief. So 2 birds with 1 stone there. Now we're moving. And then the other is Game Tech Bench at the 3 different resolutions, looking at ray tracing and basic raster performance. In terms of productivity, we've got Octane Bench, which unfortunately is not supported in the 50 series. I was using that in my 30 series cards. It's a nice benchmark, but they've not updated it yet for the 50 series cards. And V-Ray, Blender, and Geekbench, those are the ones that we're going to look at productivity. And the guidelines are the same as I ran before. Same system, settings, resolutions, trying to make the testing consistent so that you can compare the data. And the drivers didn't change unless I was trying to change the drivers and looking for that particular variable. I try to maintain the office at a steady temperature and using the means between these tests, because there's a lot of data here and I'm trying to delve it down into a relatable number so that you got something to compare with. So we'll start with looking at the 5080 and the 5090. I think that's the best comparison to start with here. There'll be more information here soon, but I've got the 2 Intel benches and the AMD bench. I've got each bench's score, and I'm going to compare Intel and AMD and then hardware differences. Did it matter between the office rig and the test bench rig? So that information is all available, but yet coming. I'm trying to make sure that this is at least more palatable and quick to get to the numbers. This is an average or the means of the 3 systems, because there really were no main outliers here. They're all relatively within spec and what you would expect. So then I think it's reasonable just to take the mean and then look at the 3 different systems of the 80 and the 90 and the percent change. That's how this is going to be presented moving through. Okay, so you've got the synthetic benchmark here on the left side, the raw score, and the percent change. The VR mark, I don't understand why we don't see changes in the VR mark. 2D performance test is fine. The 3D test, you don't see as big a change there. You also don't see Valley. Okay, that's odd that you don't see much in terms of there, but you do see changes in other sections, up to almost 60% in some of the 3D marks. There's a Steel Nomad, 66% increase in performance to move from the 80 to the 90. But overall, if you're just looking at the overall mean, you've got a 32% increase in performance if you move from the RTX 5080 to the 5090. All right. With productivity benchmarks, here is your percent change. Now, I've left the CPU data in here, and I did that on purpose again, just to reiterate, because we're trying to isolate GPU changes. I wanted to ensure to the audience that the systems weren't being variable. And since it's the same CPU but different video cards, you should not see a difference or any meaningful difference. This is run variance in your CPU data and even down here on the Geekbench CPU data. So with this being consistent, that means, and the system parameters didn't change, that means that the perceived differences are GPU only, and what's in green is into the calculation, because in Blender, you've got each test isolated out, but then this is the summary score. The summary is nothing more than the sum of these three numbers. So don't include those numbers again. That's redundant. So that's why the overall Blender score, your two V-Rays, and your Geekbench scores, and your OpenCL and Vulkan scores are added for the productivity. And what you see is between the raw difference between the two cards, you get a 47% increase in performance to go from the 5080 to the 5090. So you do see that performance bump, which is nice considering what you're paying for these cards. When you're looking at, let's take a step back then and get away from just the 5080 and 5090, and let's look at what is your performance step from the 70, like this is mid upper tier. I don't have the 5060 or the pending 5050, if God help us if that card makes it to the market. If somebody wants to provide me with a 5060 or 5060 Ti to add to this testing, happy to do so. But all of this is out of my pocket. I don't have sponsors. I don't have people supplying me data or cards. No one's telling me what to say, what not to say. And they're also not providing me with any product. So, yeah, I would say let's listen to a word from our sponsor, but it would be a blank screen right now. But hey, we're moving forward, and I think we're making good progress here on this channel. So thank you for that. So the mid and upper tier cards, the 5070 Ti, 5080, 5090, here's your percent change as you move across the gambit of 50 series. So again, VRMark is consistent. There's not much of a change there with with VRMark data. Although Blue Room is, you do see a change. Performance test, everything that was the oddities from the 5080 to the 5090 are consistent from the other 50 series lineup. So looking at 5070 to 5070 Ti, this was all data previously reported. It's all on the other video for the benchmarking. Please go check those out. I'm just trying to give you a good summary here since we've added another card, the 5090. So here's your reference point is a 5070. Go to a Ti and you get a 15% bump. Go from a Ti to a 5080, you get an 11% bump. From the 80 to the 90, you get a 32% bump. So you see that there's a decent increase. And the 70 Ti and the 80, that's the same die. There's not a huge difference here in terms of CUDA cores and counts. So that's why you don't really see a huge jump between these cards. But there's the chasm of difference between taking half of your crypto away and then giving it back to you here in a 5090. So you do see a big performance jump once you go 5080 to 5090. In your productivity benchmarks, does it get better or worse? So your reference point again is the 5070. Move to the 5070 Ti, you get a 24% bump. And then the 5070 Ti to 5080, you only get about a 10% bump. Again, those dies and cores being so similar. And then from 80 to 90, a 47% bump. So, wow, you've got horsepower on tap there, which is great. From my last comparison, I sort of summarized that the best bang for your buck might be the 5070 Ti, but we need to look at the dollar amounts and see where they stack up. So here's your price comparison. When there's a lot of data here on the screen, so bear with me here, but your average synthetic benchmark score your average productivity benchmark score and your total average between the two. So if this is the total performance number that we're going to use for the 5070, that's our reference change. If you move to a 5070 Ti, you see a almost 23% increase in performance from your total synthetic and productivity benchmark data. If you move to a 5080, you get an additional 36% from the 5070. And if you move to a 5090, you almost double your performance. So again, one of your biggest jumps is 5070 Ti, and then swing for the fences and grab that 5090, right? So, but what are you paying for these things? So the MSRPs are listed here, and we all know about MSRPs and how much of a joke they are. So I guess MSRP for NVIDIA is still $19.99, but can you still find those Founders Edition cards? And there's still SKUs in PNY and Gigabyte, but they never hit the market because they can make more money selling you fans with Christmas tree lights and performing some menial overclock and say that's worth $400 or $500 more. Here's your card, go buy it. And people are swapping them up like crazy. And so right now, the card that I'm testing was over $3,000 before tax. So what do you get? That's a 53% increase over initial MSRP. Wowzers. So what's your performance per MSRP dollar versus performance per market dollar value? The higher you are over MSRP. Now, I will tell you now that the card that I tested, the 5070 Ti, and right now you can find 5070 Ti's popping up all over the place from PNY at MSRP. So if you were considering that particular card, now's the time. They're out there now, readily available as of June 2025. You can get them for $750. So that to me is a great buy. You can't find a 5080 for $999 anymore. That was the original MSRP date or price. I guess because they cut it in half. That's a $1,000 card and $2,000 card. But the RTX 5080 that I was testing was $1,200 original MSRP price. So then what's your price for performance? If you look down here at the market value, because they're charging so much more for the 5090, you're looking at not a lot of return on investment there, just from a dollar to performance value. If it was more closely to the MSRP, then the 5080 and 5090 would be better buys. And if this was the $999 card, this would even be better. It's just, this is what the market is bearing right now, and people are still buying the cards at $3,000, but your return on investment is not there compared to the other SKUs. Now, that doesn't mean that the 5090 shouldn't be obtained. If these other cards don't provide you the horsepower and the productivity and the ability to be productive as quickly and as efficiently as you want these cards to perform, being cheaper doesn't matter, right? But if maybe it's just an ability to open your eyes to say, well, am I really getting what I think I'm getting for $3,000? These synthetic benchmarks, they're not bad for the most part. They're on point. You're getting roughly 50% over the 5080. So if that's what you're looking for and you can justify this cost, go for it. But these are synthetic benchmarks. I still have questions about what it really means, and I was trying to answer that in my previous deep dive videos. Go back, check those videos and that discussion. I don't want to belabor this one, but what does a 9.9%, 15%, 23% improvement really mean to you or the end user? What are you really using the card for? So for me, as a basic video editing YouTuber, productivity, doing my professional work, do I really see the benefit in having the 5070 Ti versus the 5090? Do I get to realize that? I am not a professional photographer or a professional video editor or work for a studio or do 3D rendering. So if that's you, then maybe your data is going to be different than what I've come up with. I have a video coming, and you've seen, if you've watched the previous deep dive part 2, you've seen me run these cards through rendering, and I use DaVinci Resolve. So now I plugged in DaVinci Resolve, and I'm going to do a better comparison between 19 and the 20 full release, not the beta now, but the 20 full release. And Puget Bench is starting to support the new released variant, so we'll be able to enhance our benchmark scores, and that's in the next video. So with that, hopefully you've enjoyed this part 3 of adding the 5090 to the collection here, and at least do some of this preliminary testing. There's going to be more information coming. The DaVinci Resolve rendering analysis and the Puget Bench analysis is on its way. A lot of rendering time and benchmark time. But hope you're finding some value in this. Stay safe. God bless.